Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Saturday morning coffee break. It's been a little while since we had one of these, so please take a moment, grab your coffee, settle in, and let's talk about a challenge that many organizations haven't fully realized yet. For decades, cybersecurity training has us thinking about vulnerabilities in a very specific way. We discover vulnerabilities, we identify the affected systems, and then we deploy a patch. We verify our remediation, and then we move on to the next vulnerability as it appears. Well, I'm here to tell you that this reactive patching isn't going to work with continuous AI logic, and it's going to be dangerous if we continue to operate this way. The cycle has served us reasonably well for traditional software, but today, many of the systems are driven by business decisions and customer interactions. While engineering processes continue to change, operational workflows that are no longer governed exclusively by static code. They're being influenced by machine learning models, the generative AI systems, and autonomous decision engines. And here's our uncomfortable reality. You can't patch AI the same way you patch your other software. The threat landscape is changing, and our security and governance strategies must evolve with it. So today I'd like to discuss why organizations should dismantle the legacy cycle of reactive patching and move towards a continuous AI logic with integrity audits, treating for algorithmic drifts, thinking about model behavior changes, as well as your AI logic manipulation as critical security vulnerabilities. So let's start with the legacy security mindset. It's a very simple observation. Most security programs, including the ones I've worked in, remain heavily focused on known software defects. We scan our operating systems. We patch our applications. We do Patch Tuesday to remediate CVEs. We also monitor our configurations. All of these are important activities. But what happens when an AI model begins making incorrect decisions, despite being technically healthy? What happens when a recommendation engine starts including biases? What happens when a large language model slowly drifts away from its approved behavior? What happens when a threat actor is able to manipulate training data or retrieval sources to influence the outputs? The infrastructure may be fully patched. The operating system is likely secure. The environment continues to pass your compliance audits. Yet, organizations' most important decision-making engine could already be compromised. Traditional vulnerability management rarely accounts for this kind of risk. Now, that opens the door for the emergence of AI logic vulnerabilities. We're entering an era where vulnerabilities increasingly exist not in code, but in logic. Think about that for a moment. An AI system can become dangerous without a single software flaw. Its underlying algorithm can drift. Its decision boundaries can change. Its outputs can become unreliable. The training data can become poisoned. Its retrieval sources are manipulated. Its alignment controls are degraded over time. These aren't theoretical concerns. They're operational realities in 2026. The question isn't whether your AI systems change. The question is whether they're continuously measuring these changes. Do you have the means to do that? Most organizations today have mature processes for software integrity. Very few have mature processes for AI integrity. And that's the compliance gap that we need to close. That leads us into a GRC blind spot for many organizations. One of the biggest challenges I see is that AI often falls into an organizational gray area. Security thinks compliance should own it. Compliance thinks the data science team should own it. The data science team is pushing engineering to own it. Engineering thinks security owns it. As a result, everyone is partially responsible, and no one is fully accountable. Take some time to build a RACI around your AI. It'll help you. Traditional GRC programs were built, as I mentioned numerous times, around static systems, policies, controls, implementing periodic audits, annual assessments, quarterly reviews. But your AI systems are dynamic by nature. They evolve continuously, sometimes multiple times a day. A compliance review performed 6 months ago, or even 1 month ago, tells you almost nothing about the model's behavior today. Here's a hard truth for many governance programs. Compliance can no longer be viewed as a snapshot. It must become a continuous process. Organizations must treat models like critical assets. Imagine for a moment that your model weights were treated the same sensitivity as your source code. Because in many ways, they're more valuable. For an AI system, model weights represent your organization's intelligence. They influence decisions. They help shape the outcomes. They determine trustworthiness. Yet, many organizations spend enormous effort securing source code repos while paying less attention to your model artifacts. You heard me right. That's backwards. Model weights should be treated as a critical digital asset. Changes should be tracked. Access should be controlled. Integrity should be continuously monitored. Unauthorized modifications should trigger alerts. Deployments should require validation and approval. The same rigor we developed for secure software development must now extend to your AI development. How many of you have thought about AI integration within your CI/CD pipeline? This is a very important concept. AI security can't be bolted on after development. It must become part of your development lifecycle itself. Think about modern CI/CD pipelines. Every code change is tested, or at least it should be. Security scans are triggered. Quality checks are performed. Approvals are documented. Now imagine extending the same principles to your AI. Every model update undergoes behavioral testing. Every retraining event triggers integrity validation. Every weight change is reviewed. Every model release is evaluated for drift. Each and every deployment is assessed against approved risk thresholds. In other words, we're not just validating code, we're validating the logic. The distinction is critical because tomorrow's attacks won't simply exploit our software vulnerabilities. Many will attempt to exploit the logic driving your autonomous systems. This is where algorithmic drift is now a security event. So let's talk about that drift. Historically, organizations have viewed model drift as an operational issue. Accuracy simply drops. Your performance is declining. Your business outcomes now suffer. A retraining project now gets launched. The problem solved. But I would argue that this drift should increasingly be viewed as a security incident as well, or at least a security issue. Why, you may ask? Because unnoticed behavioral changes create opportunities for exploitation. The moment a model begins operating outside of its expected parameters, there's organizational risk, and it's increasing. Maybe the model started making bad decisions. We may be able to live with that. Maybe it becomes more susceptible to prompt injections. Not something I want to accept the risk for. Maybe it's produced outputs that violate your regulatory requirements. Let's not mess with GDPR. Maybe an attacker intentionally influenced the data ecosystem by feeding the model bad data. Without continuous monitoring, you will never know. The model still responds. The infrastructure is still running. Everything appears normal until it suddenly isn't. That's why drift detection needs to sit alongside traditional security monitoring, not as a data scientist activity, as a cybersecurity activity. So what does that mean, Cletus? What do we need to do? Well, I think we have to focus on automated AI adversaries. So I want to push the discussion one step further, as I just talked. Many organizations still imagine human attackers focused on manually probing their systems. But the next generation of threats is increasingly automated. We're now seeing AI-assisted reconnaissance, AI-generated phishing campaigns, automated vulnerability discovery. Look at last month's Patch Tuesday. Microsoft dropped several hundred vulnerabilities in a single month. Intelligence evasion techniques. And eventually sophisticated AI systems are targeting each other. It happened just this week. OpenAI and the Hugging Face. Go read up on that if you haven't seen it yet. So let's think about those implications. An autonomous adversary can probe defenses 24/7, 365. Test thousands of input combinations. Identify behavioral weaknesses. Develop prompt injections that are opportunistic or give them new opportunities. They can manipulate the retrieval sources, exploit the alignment weakness, and do it at machine speed. No longer a manual probe. The traditional patch and pray approach simply won't and can't keep up. We need continuous validation because the attack surface itself is becoming dynamic. So let's move into something you hear me talk about often, and that's compliance and using GRC engineering. So let's move from compliance to engineering. This is the most important shift I want to see enterprises emphasize in the next coming weeks and months. AI governance cannot remain solely a compliance function. It must become an engineering discipline. For years, organizations have asked, are we compliant? In the AI era, the better question is, can we continuously prove our AI systems remain trustworthy? These are two different and distinct conversations. The first focuses on documentation. The other focuses on evidence. The first focuses on annual reviews, where the other is focusing on a continuous assurance. Your traditional mindset is very reactive. The new mindset is a proactive mindset. The future belongs to organizations that operationalize trust through their engineering. So here's some practical actions for you and me as leaders in our organization. So what should leaders do today? We should start by treating AI systems as living assets rather than static applications. We must inventory every production capability in our environment, not just model, but the capability in which it performs and which lines of businesses are utilizing it. We must establish a receipt and establish ownership yesterday. We have to define acceptable behavior baselines. Implement that drift monitoring that I've discussed several times throughout this. We have to track our model lineage and versioning. Do you know what model you're using and where and how? Incorporate AI testing into your CI/CD workflows. We must create security controls around the model artifacts and training data sets. Most importantly, we have to build collaboration between all of our teams: IT, security, engineering, data science, and even compliance and governance. AI risk does not fit neatly in a traditional organization boundary. Neither should your mitigation strategies. So as we wrap up this coffee break and you move on to your day, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. The cybersecurity industry spent decades mastering software vulnerability management. Now we're entering a phase where logic itself becomes part of the attack surface. The organizations that succeed will be those that recognize an important truth. A secure AI system is not one that was compliant at development. A secure AI system is the one whose integrity is continuously validated throughout its entire lifecycle. We must move beyond reactive patching. We must treat model weights, algorithmic drift, and behavioral changes as critical security indicators. We must embed AI integration checks directly into our software development lifecycles and engineering processes. And we must transform governance from a periodic exercise into one that's continuously capable. Because in the age of autonomous systems, trust is no longer something you audit once. Trust is something you must audit every single day. So thank you for joining me this morning. I hope you enjoyed my Saturday morning call for break. Glad to be back in the seat. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. But until then, stay safe and stay secure, everyone.